So I'm starting again. Welcome to Gobeshona Global Conference 5 and our session titled as Navigating Risk to Resilience, Engaging Education Institute to Strengthen Our Communities. And now we are going to introduce our panelists. And as a panelist, we have Musharraf Tansin, uh, climate change and education specialist, and Zawad Ibn Farid from University of Dhaka. He is serving as lecturer in Institute of Disaster Management and Vulnerability Studies. And we have Nahin Nazni as our local youth from the Haor region. And if I briefly speak about the modality of this session, Ronok Jahan Khan Ronon from ICCCAD will present our research findings that is based on the educational sector, and the study area was our region. And then we will move towards the panel discussion with our panelists. I am welcoming Ronok Jahan Khan Ronon to present his research work.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Samia, for inviting me for the presentation. I think I'll take a while to share my screen. Let me know if it is visible.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Should I proceed?
Yes, please. I hope that's okay with our panelists.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much once again, and Samia. And already Samia has mentioned it, that our presentation entitled Navigating Risk to Resilience, Engaging Education Institute to Strengthening Our Communities. So already our title talks a lot about our research. So we wanted to look at particularly in our communities and their educational, and we tried to center the educational institution in our study. So So if I just talk about a little bit of background, so it's which is well known by everyone actually. Bangladesh has a Bangladesh fragile socio-economic condition in Haor area. Also, Haor area has a unique geography which make it more vulnerable in terms of since it's a flood prone area and there is a flash flood always in particularly last in 2020 there was a recurring flash flood and which pushed to children into income generating activities as well. And educational institution actually can be a good tools to build community resilience because if the people, the students or the new generation are educated, they can pursue different livelihood opportunities as well, not being stuck the traditional livelihood opportunities. So it can be a good way for building community resilient community, and also this is we think from the literature review as well that for disaster preparedness, education institution can be another medium for disseminating the knowledge and making community more resilient. But flash flood in Sunamganj, due to in 2020, the flash flood, it's just 873 schools and impacted 2 million people. And also the infrastructure damage, emotional risk rate from flash floods, it also pushed the dropout rate as well. And currently, there are 44% of dropout rate in Sunamganj area, particularly, which also higher than the national dropout rate, which is 40%. And poverty and disaster, these cycles, they are actually um, keeping all the families in the intergenerational poverty cycle, which also pushing the girls to get in early marriage and also boys to be involved with work child labor as well. So, considering all these factors, we wanted to come up with one primary objective that we wanted to identify assess the adaptive capacity and the potential risks of educational institution. Our secondary objectives was like we wanted to evaluate adaptive capacity considering exposure and sensitivities, conduct a risk assessment considering environmental, socio-cultural, and economic vulnerabilities, and identify and address the existing gap and challenges in the pathway from risks to resilience. So, yeah, well, our research question was regarding the current status of adaptive capacity of institution withstand frequent natural hazards, also potential risks in education institution due to different exposures and vulnerabilities, and what gaps and challenges limit the resilient educational institution against the natural hazards. So as I already mentioned, our study area was in Sunamganj, particularly in Tahirpur Upazila. So we actually had 24 schools that we covered in our study. So if I just in the 24 schools, we had 12 primary schools, 7 high schools, 2 colleges, and 3 madrasa. These are the educational institutions we considered for our data collection in the study area. And our data collection was a mixed approach. First, we did 10 KII with different expertise, and in the field level, we did 24 in-depth interviews, and we did 304 surveys. And in our there are 42% of male and sorry, and 57.9% female participant. And our respondent was categorized in two. One is teachers or the academia who were involved in providing education to the students, and also the caregivers. We use the word caregivers who can be the parents or any other family member who hold the responsibilities, also the all sort of cost who bear the cost of education of children. So it includes parents and also other guardian as well. So first thing that we tried to see in the locality that their exposure to the natural hazards. So we did we talked with the local people, and we had one category of what are the rapid onset hazards they face frequently, and through throughout their our conversation we come up with like five hazards that they mention it repeatedly. The one is flash flood, heaters, waterlogging, afal, and thunderstorm. And we also ask the local community to scale them in terms of their impacts from 1 to 5. So as you can see, the flash flood hold the most impact, which is 4.8 out of 5. And then there is thunderstorm and afal and waterlogging hold the same uh, results as well. AFAL, to be more specific, AFAL is the current in the Haor area, or the waves I can say in the Haor area, which causes immobility most of the time, and due to the AFAL, student also cannot go to the school as well. So it is locally termed one of the incident in Haor area, and we use that term in our research as well. That part was local community perspective regarding the exposure to the natural hazard, but also the existing BMT data. It also says that month, monthly average rainfall in Greater Sylhet is constantly higher than the national, and the peak rainfall is May to August. And that time is also very prone to have flash flood. Other than that, the number of hot days, which is like over 35 degrees Celsius, has significantly increased over the time, reaching 146 days in 2022, exceeding the national average as well, which was not common very was not very common in Churamgunj area. Whenever we were talking with the local community, they say that now they are experiencing the hot days more compared to the before, and which is something they feel like is alarming, because traditionally or the Sunamganj area holds a very cooler temperature, or very which is very pleasant temperature, and now they also feel the warm the heat waves as well. So and then we after going through the sensitivity and exposure, we wanted to see how schools are adaptive in terms of their adaptive capacity. So we adopted this framework from another research. and it has a four indicator: physical condition, human resource, institutional issues, and external relationship. We also come up with sub indicator under physical condition, which is school building, facilities and equipment, hygiene, and environmental condition. Just to mention, under the sub indicator, there are more indicators, but for make it concise, we just keep it like that. So, and we try to cluster the in four categories, which is primary school, high schools, colleges, and madrasas. Um, if we see the average adaptive results of every educational institution, we can see that the most of are below mid level, like 2.5. Only college get a little bit higher, like mid to moderate level, 2.8, and rest of them are below average level. And the most um, the least adaptive capacity we find in a madrasa. So if then we're just going in a details as well. Like for the physical condition, there was there are multiple sub indicators that we use, and this is the stack bar chart where we can see the where the responses were. So the red bar is actually seeing the middle point, and most of the as we can see, the most of the bar actually in the left side of the red bar, which means that the answer was negative. Like it shows the very low to medium answer. Educational institutions show low adaptive capacity in mostly rebuilding or emergency supplies and transport, but perform a little bit better in infrastructure maintenance, flood proofing, and washroom facilities. In terms of human resources, the educational institute failed to provide educated DRR training. Nowhere, none of the school can say us that they have the DRR module or any drills or any emergency communication when there is a disaster, though the community demonstrates strong knowledge of flood and flash flood. So whenever we talk to the local community, only thing they put give positive answer, which is that they have the knowledge about disaster, particularly flood and flash flood, because they have been coping with this flood since their birth. So they have better knowledge. But in a school level, they don't have any mechanism which really demonstrate that they have the capacity, they are growing the adaptive capacity of the local community. In terms of institutional issue, adaptive capacity is hindering by insufficient budget allocation. We didn't find there is particular budget allocation for any disaster preparedness or recovery. Along with the gaps in disaster information as well, early warning system was not a systematic way. Normally the teacher and teacher or the caregiver, they get to know the early warning system through their medium, for example Facebook, social media, or any other medium, but it is not in a systematic way. And also absence of the disaster management plan. There were no plans particularly in school for disaster management, limiting the institution ability to handle natural calamities effectively. In terms of external relationship, study we found each most of the school were was act as a flood shelters, but their capacity of disaster risk reduction is limited by weak external relationship. In the school, we actually didn't found that school work in a collaborative way with other organization to um, mm, for disaster risk reduction. Also, there is no funding or poor connectivity with the local government and the community, and inadequate support for their activities makes this adaptive capacity way lower. Then we try to see the potential risks. We categorize them in a three category. One is due to environmental factor, due to socio-cultural factor, and due to economic factor. In terms of environmental factor, we come up with also different indicators as well. The school closure due to flash flood, for example, school closure due to heat waves or unavailability of teachers, immobility due to AFAL, auto logging, and all this sort of thing. So we found environmental hazards, including infrastructural damage, is the risk of infrastructural damage is high, which is 18.33. The school closure also high, health risks is compared high. Immobility to AFAL also gets a moderate results, also auto logging as well. So significantly impact educational institution with the madrasa is facing the highest environmental risks because we found all the madrasa was built with tin. Most of the time we found that colleges and the primary school which are newly built, they have the good infrastructure made out of brick, but in terms of madrasa they were made out of tin, so they possess the most risks in terms of infrastructure. These are potential risks due to socio-cultural factor. Socio-cultural factors such as lower attendance, which is very interesting that in agriculture season, the students, both male and girls, male and female, they don't go to school because it's kind of like a cultural practice of the area. Since that area is particularly focusing on agriculture, the main source of earnings is agriculture, and during agriculture season, each and every one of the family they get involved in the activities. So in that time, the attendance was very poor in school. Also, child labor related dropout, since most of the family live are poor and marginable, and there is no other income source but agriculture, since there is limited livelihood opportunities in that area. So most of the family really faces economical constraint, and considering this economical constraints, they tend to use their child as a investment or money maker. So there is a high rate of child labor related dropout, particularly in West season when there is no other job to do. They send their kids or the youth to other places for work, and these things also being accelerated by the flash floods, particularly because um, very recently, the agriculture was not very profitable in that area because of the flash flood. It came and washed away all the producers, so they had to survive. So for that reason, they use their uh, child as a as an earning source, and also child marriage as well. And poor educational environment significantly affect education, and also dropout rates due to um, like teacher absentness and poor educational support also were there. Particularly, these are all also for the communication system of that area. This since most of the schools was in the Haor, in the middle of the Haor area, and there is no communication system, particularly in dry season. In wet season, only there is only one way is using boat. So this communication the limited communication also lowered the interest of the teacher and also the students as well to be in the school on time and or regularly in regular basis. Another potential risk due to economic factor that we wanted to look at it, which is poverty related dropout, which gets the most um, score as well. Um, um, Poverty significantly impacts education with factors like lack disaster preparedness funds and caregiver financial limiters that we already talked a little bit about it, and insufficient repair fund. So, and dropout rates are higher in high schools as well and madrasa. So, particularly, we found out the high school in high school we found the most dropout happens compared to the primary school and the college. And the college dropout is also a little bit increased as a familiar priorities earning over education as well. So the if I just wanted to sum up the key findings, that is dropout in high school and college students face the greatest dropout risks, particularly in high school actually that our data says, because in high school most of the time there is no subsidies from the government, and the pursuing education in high school a bit costly compared to the primary school. Primary school has a subsidies from the government. Also it has a scholarship opportunity, though there is scholarship opportunity in the high school, but um, eh, after completing the primary school, when student get involved in the high school, the amount of cost their caregiver needs to bear, which is compared to higher, and they can't really bear that, And also at that age, it is the all the boys get um, boys they started sending their boys to the other places for child labor, and also they try to give the child marriage to the girls as well at that age. And also frequent flash floods severely disrupt educational continuity. As I already mentioned it, that in 2022, over 873 schools in Sylhet and Sunamganj closed due to the worst flash flood, affecting over 2 million people, and that impact induced classroom damage, also loss of teaching materials and stationary crisis, leading to a long-term interruption in learning. Educational institutions lack resilience. When we look at the we went through that at capacities course, it says that most of the schools below moderate and most schools prime and they don't even have dear planning, and and the funding are constantly weak, and living school are way more vulnerable. So this, as we said, that these school are are situated in the climate vulnerable area where disaster is one of the very common thing, and but still yet they don't have any funding or any management plan for this institution to for recovery or or and last but not the least, the socio-cultural economic factor reinforce the intergenerational education loss as well. Family prioritize short-term income over education, especially during borrow rice cultivation and fishing season. Caregivers reported financial emergency, poverty, and seasonal migration as a primary cause of dropout, especially for the boys. So, in our research, the dropout of boys really echoes a lot. Even though whenever we were in the field, we went to different schools, and we tried to look at the classroom, and we wanted to see the composition of boys and girls in the classroom. And most of the time, we found out. Most of the students were female, and there are also we found out a lot of classes where there was no male students as well. So at that time, most of the since it was we went to in a west season, and most of the we when we talked to the teacher, they said most of the students they are already sent to the other places, like particularly boy students sent to the other places to earn livelihood. So in every classes, we found out girls was dominating every classes. So we think that there was the interesting finding that we came across through our research, that is boys dropout is very prominent in that area. And I wanted to mention one other thing here. So um, uh, that was also mentioned in our full report. So in terms of dropout, so mostly in our national data, the educational statistics, it is say that the uh, female are the most female are being dropped out more. But in Sunamganj area, the scenario is a little bit different, which after completing the primary education, 87% of female are being admitted in high school, where only 66% boys are being admitted in high school. So here already a big gap that most of the time we are actually overlooking. But also in terms of girls, they have also a lot of vulnerability in terms of early marriage, because which is very common, and being in Bangladesh, it has been talked a lot about the early marriage. And in Sunamganj area, I feel like the girls are also way more vulnerable compared to the other places, because they have since the people have a economic constraint in their family, and the parents they really get their girls marry off as soon as possible, because they don't really see the earning opportunity, or the girls they don't have that mindset that their girls can earn for their family, and earn livelihood for their family as well. So, through from our research, we would like to draw some recommendation, which is we would like to say that expand financial aid for high school students to lower dropout rates, boost the community awareness to value education over early labor or marriage, because we think here is the most gap in terms of awareness, and since they focus on short term income mostly. Build climate resilient schools to promote mobile and digital learning option. Like it's just not the mobile or digital learning. It's like coming up with alternative solution where the students can also learn during disaster, or so that they don't need to be away from their studies for a long period of time. Adopt disaster responsive policies to protect education during crisis. If I just wanted to extend that, adopt disaster responsive policies in terms of, since we now we already know the which time is more vulnerable for in that particular area, so we would like to recommend that their curriculum and their class scheduling, and also the holidays, everything can be a little bit contextualized. For example, also in agricultural season, anyway the student don't don't go to the school, so if we consider that culture in our in our policies for particularly in Sunamganj area, maybe there will be a because we already have one holidays which is called summer vacation. So if we can shift the summer vacation with not with the national holidays, but bring making it more contextualized, and particularly when those area are practice post harvesting time of the agriculture. If we shift the summer vacation at that time, then student also, so it means the student will not be absent in school. Also they can later on the rest of the country or rest of the student in the country they are into the school, they can also um, so if we can shift the summer vacation in agricultural season, so maybe it will be more contextualized, and student will not be absent in the school. And also create local livelihood option to reduce migration and child labor, which is a big issues. But creating more option, more livelihood diversification in that area can be another key way to reduce the migration and child labor as well. So that's pretty much of my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening to it patiently. And if you have any question, um,
Thank you so
Samir,
much, Ronan Bhai, for your wonderful presentation. And I want to add few information about this research. This research study was conducted as one of the deliverables of the CAPRIS project, which stand for Capacity Strengthening of Multi-Actors to Limit Climate Change Impact and Enhance Resilience. And this project is funded by Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. And within this research, we wanted to see what are the existing adaptive capacity and what are the potential risks within the Haor region, as this region has higher climate impact than any of others, considering the flash flood events. And uh, now I want to ask our honorable panelist members if they have any questions regarding the presentation and their overall thoughts about the key findings. Tanshan Bhai, do you have any question or you can
Uh,
share your thoughts?
no, particularly I don't have any questions at this moment. Yeah,
Okay,
I can share my overall thoughts on
sure, Bhai, please.
different. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ranan, for presenting the research findings, and it's really a wonderful one. Particularly, I'm a man from Haor region, uh, so I can relate with all the findings that you have presented here. And particularly, this presentation reveals a deeply interconnected wave of challenges facing students in the Haor region. And that Haor region is one of the climate vulnerable region. You know, if I can point out in our order, like firstly, I must point that it's it's presented high dropout rates in the secondary and post-secondary level or above secondary level. It's alarming. In the our region, particularly, it has a gendered phase of the dropout. Boys are dropping out for the reason of being involved in labor, and girls are being dropped out for early marriages. So it's really alarming, and I think we should concentrate on the solutions for those alarming things in a different manner, in a gendered manner. And the second thing is that the different flash floods or different disasters are doing harm or cause harm, uh, devastating impact on the lives of the children, lives of the communities, and people are not only or students are not only affected by uh, in a short-term educational outcomes, rather they are also being exposed to the long-term setbacks, damaging infrastructure, teaching materials, and they are also being affected in their health sanitation systems. So I think this finding underlines urgent need to climate-proof educational infrastructure and make resilience building a core part of school management. I can cite an example here, though it's not regarding the Haor region, but I saw one initiative taken by Friendship in Tor areas of Kurigram Gaibandha district. And they were building the school uh, so that they can dismantle the school uh, house within 2 to 3 hours, and they can set a school building or school house in highland during the floods, and they can continue their education at that time as well, the emergency situation. So I think we can think of that as well. And the third one is the poor disaster resilience. In our region, we can easily find a lot of schools who don't have any disaster risk reduction plan or disaster risk management plan within the schools or within the school community. So I think this findings is indicating that schools are not just disrupted by the disasters; they are structurally not prepared to cope with those disasters and recovery. And the recovery system is very slow during the frequently flash floods. So finally, I must say, which I already have mentioned, that there are some gendered impact. So we should think about the deep-rooted socio-economic and cultural drivers of the effect or impact on educational exclusion, so that we can think of designing a multifaceted way or multi-layered strategies for coping with those disaster situations. I think in short, this is my thought that in the findings emphasize that building educational resilience in the Haor region demands a multifaceted strategy, strengthening school disaster preparedness, providing financial and social support to vulnerable families, addressing gender-specific risks, and embedding education firmly within the broader community resilience frameworks. Here, I can cite another example in Kishorganj districts, like Nikli Upazila, POPI, People's-Oriented Program Implementation. They have introduced, with the funding from Malala Fund, they have introduced a small-scale stipend program, scholarship program for the disaster vulnerable schools, students. So I think we can think of that sort of scholarship, small scale scholarship initiative as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanshan Bhai, for your wonderful recommendations. And I must agree that all of the suggestions you have made, such as the climate proof resilient infrastructure or the disaster risk management strategies or plans within the schools, are one of the solutions that must be taken into the account. Jawad Bhai, if you have any question, and please share your overall thoughts.
Uh, Thank you, Sami. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. All right. Um, I don't have any question. I will, just like Atanshan Bhai, I will just share my observation. Um, First of all, thank you, Samiha, for your nice introduction and calling me out. And also, thank you so much, Ronald, for a very informative presentation. Appreciate it. I was taking notes actually. Howard is very close to my heart, as Tanshan Bhai was actually saying that he is absolutely from Howard. I'm not from Howard, but I've, you know, uh, spent a substantial amount of time in my research, although I'm a very small person right now, but in Howard, and I found it fascinating in so many levels. Actually, it's a different world altogether. It's like you have come from the field, so you know that it's like half of the year you're on the land, and half of the year you're on all. It's all the water as far as you can see. It's just water. It's that unique bowl-shaped landscape makes the life definitely beautiful, but brutally tough at the same time due to climate change. All the water running off from the upper streams from the Cherrapunji down towards the hill, and with all those siltation and rivers getting up afloat, and people here live with the floods every single year. It's the part of the deal actually. So because of this constant flooding, schools are down, roads disappear, even the submersible roads disappear, and the daily life turns into like survival game for the Haor community. So add to that, you've got poverty, lack of the services, the basic services, fundamental rights, limited job provisions, and whatnot. Honestly, it's like the system expects from to somehow adjust. You say I'm air quoting every year without giving them the tools they actually want to cope with. So that's why when you talk about the education system, in particularly our region, we are not just talking about, a few missed school days, maybe. It's the entire futures, like getting washed away with their dreams. And if you don't step up, actually. So I really appreciate the hard work and the research that you have come together into collecting the data and the evidences from the recent time, the framing the issues very clearly. So, like sitting here and hearing these findings, it feels like very close to what we often see in the field, especially working in the disaster education sectors. I can say these challenges are not random, never random. They're actually deeply rooted in the systems that we build, and also the very particular policy level choices that we make. And so, going to the findings, I was actually taking the notes when the presentation was being provided by Ronan. So the first of all is what, if I'm not missing, high dropout risk among the secondary level education. Like one of the first things that come to the mind whenever we're talking about the education sector of Bangladesh is dropout from the very primary level to the secondary and the tertiary level. um, I mean, the fact that the students in the high school and also from the madrasa in the tertiary level education, from the cohorts of education, have such a high chance of dropping out. It's not also random. From a recent study, actually, Brack and Campy does all those studies, and I was also one of the research associates, senior research associates of the IIT. Institute of Informatics and Development. I was into the education wing, and I had opportunity to work with the Campy, Education Out Loud, EOL, some big names with the education sector of Bangladesh. So the findings resonates, the Bragg found in 2024 also in collaboration with the Campy that more than half of the dropouts after the pandemic were at the secondary level. So this is the findings which is substantial here, the secondary level of education. And now during the disaster, that trend is continuing. So this is actually alarming. When we saw in the COVID period in the Haor region, particularly in all around the Bangladesh, the findings, the correlates. Uh, and the families start facing bigger economic pressures too. You see, it is like once you cross the primary school, support thins out. The government subsidize only the primary education, mostly, and it is being stopped after the primary, and the families start facing bigger economic pressures. And the students at that age, like 14, 15, 16 years old, they get pulled into adult responsibilities way too early when the crisis hits. And whenever I'm talking about the How region, so this was very similar towards the findings of my own study that I did in how within the education in emergency um, in the how regions. I found in my study that high school and college students, particularly, I'm repeating again, high school and college students are the most vulnerable to dropping out during the disaster. Why? Older students often leave education to support their families. It's no wonder. And financially due to their forced relocation after the repeated floods. Floods is not like a small deal. Every year we are getting to see that. Then the child labor thing, that something that really worries should be worried us, that the child labor and the early marriage drive these dropout patterns. Like for male students, as Ronan was actually pointing out, um, for the male but boy students, the connection with child labor is very visible. That's no wonder. And for the female students, the early marriage pressure is almost immediate when there is any disaster or any sort of income loss. Anything that happens in between, there is a crisis, marry them off. That's the very particular pattern or behavioral pattern. If you see through the social cognitive theory, that's evident. That's very evident. And it's very heartbreaking too, but it is a reality. If the families are struggling, boys are sent to work, and the girls are married off to reduce the burden or the protection, because the father is away working somewhere else. It is the Howard regions. Sometimes there is work, sometimes there is not. And they're getting away towards another boundary, towards another district, but then there no food in the shelter, the food in the barn. And this is not just a family issue, it's a structural issue where the education is unable to protect the anchor, young people, when they need it the most. So what I say, it's not just a family issue, it's also structural. So there is a correlation. Another thing is disruption of the floods. Actually, I was observing the lead review Ronan was going through. You see, in 2022 floods, over 873, if I'm not wrong, 873 schools in Sylhet and Sunamganj were forced to close. But it's not temporary closures. I repeat, these were not temporary, these were closed, like totally shut down. Classroom damage, loss of teaching materials, like sanitation crisis, that kids, where would the kids go and for the education if that's not safe anymore? Basically, setting back learning for the months, if no longer for the year two. So mere fact, but more than the just educational institutions, the study areas are physically weak. I've seen in the Howard areas against the disaster, schools are often damaged, used as like flood shelters that also run on shed light on, or closed or extended. For the extended periods, they're becoming closed, all of which delay the return to the normalcy situation. So the real tragedy is every time a disaster interrupts the schooling, more students disappear from the systems permanently. It creates, you see, the ripple, the ripple effect, right? Leading to the child labor, leading to the early marriage. You see three threats: child labor, early marriage, seasonal migration. It's the vicious cycle. You cannot just get out of that because of the flash flood, because of the infrastructure and the policy level lacking, sort of. And last but not the least, the lack of infrastructure management resilience. If I say management resilience, a new term, the findings on infrastructure and management resilience, honestly, the lack of it are something we really overlook sometimes, or maybe do not take seriously. Your study shows adaptive capacity scores, which we are seeing them through the Likert scales. Most of them are below the um, moderate level, below moderate level. So this basically means that the school are sitting ducks when the disaster happened, right? Even high school, madrasa, primary. So adaptive capacity scores are being low across all type of schools and educational institutions. So the key gaps that you found was no flood resistant infrastructure. The teachers had no proper training what to do during the disaster, and almost no DRR plans. We are talking about the DRR plans within the schools. Actually, maybe I will go somewhere else right now, but this has to be said. I have done another study under Bangladesh Preparedness Program under ADPC, most recently for the Standing Orders on Disasters and the NPDM, National Plan for Disaster Management 2015. How the policy and practice gap level reality in the field, that we wanted to find that out. We talk in three major districts. I'm not mentioning the name because it's not published yet, but we talk all type of disaster management committees, even for the municipality disaster management committee, even with the social development officers from the municipality of the coastal region, of also the northeastern region, also from the northern region of Bangladesh. Even the very basic monthly or bi-monthly meeting of the disaster management committee is not there. Nobody knows what happens. Even the regime has changed. That's a different issue. Maybe right now the political agendas are being somehow, jeopardized, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is the policy, the weak policy level governance. So whenever we're talking about the school preparedness program, school preparedness committee, there is a committee. There's a provision of the school preparedness committee in the standing orders on disaster. I can say that. You can just open the book and read it out loud. But how many schools does the exact knowledge that we have to make a committee? And whenever we are talking about the Haor region, it's more like that we are sitting in a time bomb of disaster every time, every year the flash floods is hitting. There is no getting back from there. So how much are we prepared? Is it just we are sitting back and facing disaster every year, facing flash floods coming from the northern stream? It's not like that. So even I can remember the Plan Internationals and other findings for 2022 when I was doing my research. About one third of the rural schools had a functional emergency response plan, but they were not activated. Here's the problem: the gap between the policy and practice. So when a disaster hits, there's maybe, yeah, definitely there will be confusion. There will be schools just aren't prepared for the protect students for continuing learning. It is like schools want to help, but they are helpless themselves because they are not getting the resources that they need. And you cannot expect the children to feel safe continuing learning if the adults around them are confused during emergencies. Adults are confused. How can we just save the kids around there? It's like everybody wants to help, but they don't know how. I've taken much time, I guess. I will just say another point. I'm just taking the note. The socioeconomic drivers. That's also from my field, actually. That aligns with my field. Um, they push actually kids out of education. When families in the Haor region, they collect crops in a very particular time. Another level, they're very, very, very jolly-minded people in Haor region. They like music. They like to sit together. And Baul Shah Abdul Karim's in the Dirai Upazila, in the Shalla Upazila, I've worked in the both areas. They are like people with a very linear-minded and very, very straight thinking patterns. Whenever during the boro cultivation, the crop losses that happens, the need for the seasonal migration, they also facing that. Also the financial emergency from the health shocks, or they are also getting in the debt. So in these scenarios, education become luxury, and they can no longer afford the luxury. I have talked with them. For boys, that often means being pulled into labor to support the family. They are like investment plans for the parents. For girls, it means that being married off early to reduce the, I've already said that the cost and the risk when the male guardians are away working. So there's a pattern in how areas. It is very clear that the education loss is becoming intergenerational, intersectional in the context, because when a child drops out today, it sets up a cycle, the vicious cycle, loss of opportunity for tomorrow. So I think these patterns are very clear. The research actually resonates with the recent findings of the other organizations and from the peer-reviewed journal articles too from the lit review. There was I would very much like to see the lit review, how things were unfolded from the lit review. Maybe I'll get that from the ICCCAD. And economic shocks directly lead to the education loss that you have shown. So when a student drops out today, we are not just getting a learner. We are just just sacrificing an entire future. And that's how it's leading towards the community resilience lack of it. So that's all from me from the overall observation on the findings. If I'm not I'm sorry if I take much time.
No, it's okay. It's all about the discussion and it may take time. And yes, I will support your all of your statements. Like when climate change triggers and the event increases within the area, and if we are not prepared, we will not be able to cope up with this scenario. And I will get back to both of the experts, but now I will ask Nahin uh, if you are available. Nahin?
Uh, Beforehand, can I just
Yes, please.
So,
Bhai.
thank you, John. Bhai. I really like one of your comments, so I would like to echo with it. So, since our research actually wanted to look at the pathway from risk to resilience, and we were saying that our educational institution can be key elements of making the community resilient. So, in another words, like community educational institution can help community to be better resilient, but I really wanted to echo with you that educational institution itself is helpless. So how it can help the community. So we have Nahin with us. Samiha already introduced Nahin. I just wanted to add, we've met Nahin in the field. So she was one of our respondents as well. So whenever we were in that village, we found out her, and she was the only one person from that community who is now in university. And rest of the community are we found out really value her a lot compared to the other people, because she's the only one who is now doing in university and doing activism and research as well. So uh, that really stand out in our research, that uh, how community is treating her and compared to the others. So that's why we also wanted to hear and also share our findings with her as well. So that's why we bring her in our board. So yeah, Samiha.
Okay, so Nahin, thank you for joining with us from the study area we are talking about. And uh, as you are from there and you are working in this sector uh, by being an activist or a fellow, do you find the result realistic to your experience? And within this scenario of the Haor region, how did you start your journey in uh, higher education?
Okay. Uh, uh, Already you introduced me. I am Nahin Nazneen, currently studying at Shah Jalan University of Science and Technology at Anthropology Department. Thank you for giving me the floor to represent our community. Growing up in the Haor area, I have firsthand knowledge of and experience of our natural disaster like flash floods, afal, and prolonged waterlogging. Uh, by that, we can see that disrupt our education system every year. The findings shared to this session is not just research outcomes for me. They are a reflection of our community's everyday struggles, sacrifice, and hopes. I am grateful for the opportunity to share a little of that lived experience with you today. You know that the How region, where water governs our every action, where education is a struggle, and where resilience is a necessity, is often overlooked in disaster. discussion, resilience discussion. Today, I want to bring the voice of those who live here, who experience these realities every day in the front line. As a local youth, I completely agree with these research findings, which already Ronan Bhai have shared. Their direct reflection of the challenge we face every day in the Haor. The report talks about high dropout rates among secondary school students due to economic pressure, seasonal migration, and early marriage. And this is something we see every year in our community. Every year, the our communities here face the same battle of balancing education with their survival. And Our school journey is not like children who lived in urban areas who have easy access to roads, transportation, and consistent and learning materials. We have to travel by boat through extreme rains and floods, often risking our safety just to get to go school. When and Ronbai already mentioned that in the secondary high school level, dropout rate increase when government subsidies stop after primary level. Many families can't afford to keep their children in school. Boys often have to go to work like fishing, farming, and some of them even goes to outside of their living place, like they have to migrate to cities for job. And girls face the added pressure of early marriage, especially during floods or times of economic hardship. Families feel insecure, and marrying of their daughter seems like a way to protect them. Their fear of floods, damaging homes, and displacing families reinforces this behavior. Moreover, the findings, the severe disruption and caused by flash flood are exactly how we live every year. I would like to share one of my personal experience. I still remember the 2022 flash floods, where over Ronan Bhai already mentioned that 873 schools were closed, and I was also trapped. I was also trapped in university. In SAST. SAST was also in underwater. I was trapped for like 3 days, and with no way to contact to my family, as Sunamganj was totally disconnected from all over the country. That was one of my worst experience in my life, and this shows how disruptions affect just not just education but entire well-being of that community. So yes, the findings reflect our lived experience accurately. I can say that without any doubt. And there are another question that during the during and post disaster season, how education handle the situation. Educational institutions are like in the horizon, like those in Sunamganj, are often unprepared for the scale of natural disaster like floods, which have leave both physical and emotional damages. During disaster, schools typically close down immediately for safety reason. For example, the devastating flash flood of 2022, the worst, we know that the worst flood in over a century. Many institutions are completely underwater. Some school buildings are also used as emergency shelter for displaced families, and many institutions, including my own, were closed for months. Cause of floods, devastating floods, textbooks were lost, classroom were damaged, sanitation became a major issue, toilets were unusable to use, and reopening was very slow. However, due to the lack of proper resources and support, the recovery process is often slow and stressful for both student and teacher. Many students, especially those whose families have lost everything, they even don't return to school. There were no backup plans in place, and that led to prolonged disruption in education. Comparatively, during post disaster situation is slightly better, but still challenging. Teacher often take the initiative to bring student back into classroom once the water recedes, but recovery is very slow. Many schools struggle with replacing lost textbooks, restoring damaged infrastructure, and rebuilding trust in the system. However, without I can say that without structured disaster risk reduction plan, institution cannot adequately prepare for the next disaster. The key findings which Ranbhai presented that, show that the resilience of most school is low, and I strongly agree with this. For us, education is continuous struggle, not just for knowledge but for survival. And I also mentioned another thing which was mentioned by Musharraf Tansen sir. He's suggested some locally led adaptation strategies. I agree with sir. Locally led adaptation strategies are not only feasible in the Haor area, but highly essential for especially for the Haor region. The Haor communities have deep-rooted understanding of their environment, and their local knowledge makes them best positioned to lead adaptation efforts. Um, I believe that locally led adaptation strategy, which will focus on community-based solution, which means they are designed to be sustainable, context-specific, which give the unique challenge in the Haor area, such as frequent flooding, afal, erratic rainfall, and climate change impacts. Locally, as we know, locally led adaptation offers solutions that are tailored to the needs to local population, rather than relying on top-down intervention. Additionally, engaging youth, community leaders, educational institution in the decision-making process will ensure the solution are not only feasible but also widely accepted and effective. And in the end, I can say that from that region, in a vulnerable climate-prone area where flash flood is very common every year, we have to face this disaster. My journey far now wasn't easier, but I made this. I would like to thanks ICCCAD for giving me the opportunity to represent my Haor area in front of everyone. Over to you, Samihapo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nahin, for your wonderful explanation based on your experience and how you addressed locally led adaptation in this situation. And while I am talking with two other panelist members, I will ask the audience if they have any question and they can share on the chat. And my next question will be for Musharraf Tangshan Bhai and Zawad Bhai. Uh, Based on the scenario of the climate change in the Haor region, like we will be having flash flood in higher frequency or higher intensity in the next few years, or there will be more damage and losses in that region. So, can locally led adaptation be a solution to address this problem?
Should I
Should
start
I?
or Tanshin bhai? Hi, please, bhai.
Sure. Thank you, Samiha. In response to your question, I must say yes. Locally led adaptation can be an option and must be an option. It not only can be, must be an option. Uh, Particularly if we think about the locally led adaptation for the whole region, I think it can decrease disruption or decrease the impact of these flash floods or other disasters which are occurring in our region. So I must put the point in this way, like uh, if we think about locally led adaptation for the whole region, or particularly the institutions, educational institutions in the whole region, if we think about institution and educational institution itself is not only the mm, buildings or physical infrastructure. It also include its students, teachers, parents, even the broader community of the uh, locality. So I think school community resilience planning should be a collaborative method following the collaborative manner. So I think students, parents, teachers, and local leaders of that locality should be involved in designing a school disaster resilience plan, not just the experts only or the outsiders should be involved. Rather, all of the stakeholders should be involved in the school resilience planning. So these plans should address uh, multiple aspects like early warning systems, school safety, alternative class schedules during floods or other emergencies, and backup learning centers in safe places during the disaster uh, should also be included within the uh, plan, which should be locally led adaptation plan. And another thing which was mentioned by Ronan during his presentation is that flexible or seasonal school calendar. Since late 90s, we are demanding the flexible school calendar. And we have been negotiating or placing demands to the different governments for this flexible school calendar. It's not only for the our regions. I think if we can think in a decentralized manner, we should also consider the flexible school calendar for different regions of the country. Like uh, mm, for the CHT, Chitong Hill Tracts, we can concentrate or focus our flexible calendar focusing on the Zoom cultivation. Likewise, in our region, we can focus on the Boro cultivation and uh, uh, disaster season to incorporate in within the flexible school calendar. Here, I can cite another example. While I was visiting a school back in 1991, around 35 years, in Mitamoin district, Mitamoin Upazila of Kithugon district. I was at that time I was a school student, and at that time I was observing or enjoying my Durga Puja vacation, and I visited one of my friends' house at that time, and I found that uh, the schools, secondary schools particularly in that Upazila, are open at that time during the Durga Puja vacation of the whole country, because their schools are disrupted when the water comes on the house and when water goes away. So they have their own flexible calendar, academic calendar. They already have adjusted or adapted their school academic calendar based on the disruption. So I think from that experience, we can also think of, or we can have a flexible timing or seasonal calendar. We again and again we can demand for that for the Haor region, because when water comes to the Haor, there there is no way to commute to school, to and from school, even by walking or by boat. So they have to close the school. And the same thing happens when the water goes away. So I think considering that time of closing the schools, we can plan our calendar, our academic. So another thing is that I already have mentioned, we can think of some small scale scholarships based on the need of that locality. I think the need of a scholarship will not be similar in all spaces or all localities. So based on the local level need, we can adjust, we can make adaptation. And also, we can think of disaster resilient low-cost school infrastructure to promote local innovation in building flood resilient classrooms, uh, like in flood prone areas. We can think of raising platforms, mobile learning centers, and even both schools. In Nucleopozilla, there are some booths which was initially run by BRAC with the fund from the foundation or Education Above All. And now currently Poppy is 4 to 5 schools, both schools in Katu. So I think we can think of both school as well. And also we can think of uh, some sort of peer mentorship or youth leadership program. I'm really amazed seeing Nahin here. Youth people like Nahin are available in our region. I think if we can utilize them, if we can use their uh, skills, their knowledge to gear up the students, junior students of our region, I think it can be beneficial. It can make them aware about mm, need of the education, necessity of the education, and the benefits of long-term investment in education by the parents. If we can make the awareness session with the help of those youth, I think it can be much more eye-opening for the community people, for the parents, to see education not as a spending education. They will be able to see the education as a long-term investment rather than spending. So I think that sort of initiative we can think with the help of community people, and also we can think of different mothers group in our region, if we can create some mother circles or mother group and parent support group to advocate for continuity education, and especially for the girls at risk of early marriage. If we can aware the mothers, it can boost up the resistance of early marriage and to continue their daughters' education. And we can also engage women as a champion of education and resilience in the household as well. And we already have talked about different child protection issues like child labor, uh, early marriage, even trafficking. So during crisis, so if we can establish some community watch groups to monitor and prevent those child protection issues, I think we will be successful in protection or provide the protection to the children or students. And locally, we can enforce safe return to school of the students after the floods or any sort of disasters. And I think we can also think of setting up some informal learning centers. And if possible, we know there are more than 32 community radios established in Bangladesh. So if we think about establishing community radios for the whole region and radio-based education or interactive radio-based education, if we can think of, I think those can continue delivering the education even when formal schools are shut down during the flood or other disasters. And finally, if we think about promoting local champions, we can also organize uh, or arrange storytelling sessions through those radios or even in person to celebrate the local success stories like girls or boys uh, who continued their education despite disasters. Uh, so, so that we can inspire others by listening their stories, and positive local examples can be set to shift the social norm, so that the community people can be aware about all the initiatives, all the activities that are taken. But keeping in mind that all these activities, all these initiatives must be planned within and by with the consultation and by the community people. They should lead all these initiatives so that the all sort of adaptations can be happening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tansin Bhai, for your wonderful explanation. And yes, local suffer the disasters, and local people should be bringing the solution. So I will request Jawad Bhai uh, to share his insight.
Thank you, Samiha. I was actually listening very carefully to what Tansin Bhai had to offer, and also the take on Nahin, the local champ, who actually had her own point of view about being raised in the Haor region. So, like, whenever we are being discussed about the locally led adaptation, and also the adaptation more precisely, to begin with, whenever it's like whenever we're talking about the adaptation, it's more likely, and more precisely locally led adaptation, it's more likely towards that Disney movies prom party, where the adaptation goes in like the ugly sister who uh, to whom anybody doesn't want to dance with. It's not like the money spinner, like the mitigation approaches. And also, I had a very fruitful discussion, a very engaging discussion with um, the late Dr. Salimul Haq sir in one of the Gobeshona symposium, and also in another symposium, who also shed lights in this very particular subject matter, that whenever we are talking about adaptation, these are very much um, difficult times to get onto the shrink funding and all. So whenever we are talking about the locally led adaptation, I mean, we know, basically taking into consideration of the Haor region, we know the water is going to rise. So why are we still building the fixed permanent schools like it's not? Look at the Acadia floating school actually, based on the Kanachod area from the Aga Khan Foundation. They literally float when the floods come. You know that example, right? Simple logic. Adapt to the reality. We are being prone to the climate change. Climate change triggered exacerbated extremes. It's not mere reality. It's the fact. And it's not some expensive miracle. It's just a smart use of local materials and design, and being binged with the local indigenous technology, and being binged with the nature. So coming to the locally led adaptation, honestly, the question was, is it necessary? I honestly believe this is where it gets real. Lasting change can actually happen through the LLR. It's not just a theory. It's something I feel every time I go to the field in the rural level, especially in the coastal area. It's not just mere theory. It's the practice that we need to put together our thoughts to make it happen in a very robust manner. And whenever we're talking about education, it means, see, school committees, teachers, parents, the local chaps like Nahin, they must be trusted and supported to design their own resilience plan. Whenever we're talking about, we are just sitting back and taking the advanced advanced like bullet points of the floods every year. And you know what? We have solid proof that it works. For example, we know the RCRC movement, Red Crescent and Red Cross movement, and from the Bangladesh Red Crescent Society, they have just running a program, Community-Based Disaster Risk Management Program, CBDRM. So they also run the program in the coastal area right now. It's been years. Schools that made their own flood action plans, they actually reopened after the flood more than 30%, if I'm not wrong, faster after the floods compared to the other school. They have to wait for the top-down instructions. You see the policy gap here. You see the policy discrepancy here. 30% faster. That's weeks earlier for children to getting back to the school, getting back with the education in emergency as we speak. So, and it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, locals know their land better than anyone. They know where the riverbank eroded, which part the flood hits fast, who owns the only bow, who has the like the house in the upper area in the safer position, how to mobilize the students and the peers quickly. Things no central policy can fully predict, these things, the indigenous things. So instead of pushing national plans downward, we must resource the local action work. It's not downward, it's going upward. The bottom-up approach that we are talking very frankly and fluently whenever the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction SFDR that took into action, and it's getting to an end. We need to rethink about this, how much mainstreaming of the DRR plans that we are talking about. And you see the champs like the Nahin can come in really handy in this regard. And it's not just one of cases. I'd be very much intrigued. I mean, if I can just resonate with my own research example here, I can correlate the findings from a very recent baseline study, still under final review though. I conducted with my team in the coastal belts of Shoronkola, in the Rayanda Union and the South Khali, Upazila of Bagherhat. It was very clear. See, more than 95% people knew that yes, they are directly affected by the climatic disasters like cyclones, salinity, tidal surge, floods, heat waves. Yet more than 80%, I repeat, more than 80% had no awareness about LLA, local lead adaptation, and NBS, natural solution. Can you imagine? It was very extensive survey. The sample size is more than 500. Now, talk about that. The very communities facing the front lines of the disasters, and they are not even meaningfully included in the solutions. Why? That's messed up. That's a massive gap between policy and practice. Also, I did another study with the Practical Action and Council Worldwide, the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance Plan, to see how the 8 plans, climate change plans, National Adaptation Plan, BCCTF, Delta Plan, BDP 2100, Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, also, even though it's not in the green right now, how the weak governance, I mean, Department of Environment in the Haor area, also in the coastal area, in the northern region, they even do not have any, I don't know, should I say this rawly or not, but they don't have any hands-on training or any particular subject matter type insights about what's actually written in the NPDM, what's actually written in the NAP. So even worse, even when the community have local knowledge, locally, when we're talking about the LLA, right? Like using, see, the floating gardens, vermicompost, salt tolerant rice varieties, weak governance and lack of plans even block the scaling up these solutions. I'm talking about the intervention area, not the control area. The control group or intervention group, whenever we are going through the NGO interventions into a particular community, they're getting to know what actually things are. But there are the communities, most of them were control group. In fact, more than 70% of the households in our survey research are still forced to buy drinking water because local safe water systems are not maintained. LLA is actually very weak here, very helpless here. More than 50% actually say that they had no idea about structured water management. What is LLA? Now we are talking about the education system. These aren't just can be resilient if basic survival needs are not addressed for the very fundamental rights. Then comes education. We also have very local innovative stories like the Jago Foundation, for example. They have mobile learning centers. Friendship. I saw Miss Runa Khan actually was one of the panelists yesterday in the ICCCAD Gobeshona performance, who also shed lights on how they are adapting with the mobile schools and the mobile hospitals. So these are not high-tech rocket science setups, they're low-tech setups to teach kids during the floods. Education needs to continue. They didn't wait for $1 million projects, they adapted creatively because they understand the ground level realities. Or take the families in Shoronkola from my research, they are building raised platforms, Macha. You know Macha, inside homes, they keep their children safe during floods. They are doing their part. Are we doing our parts to support them? Are the policymakers doing their part to support them? We are just creating big, fat, hairy policy guides and books. Even I would say it's in my desk too. In the desk in the Upajala UNO's office, in the PIO's office, in the DRO office. How are they being implemented? So if we are serious about building resilient education system through LLA, then the policy advocacy must focus on some very, very clear points. You see, first, if we create local adaptation funds that schools and communities can easily access, right now, local leaders, through the self-help groups, SIGs, the local leaders have great ideas, but zero resources to act. I saw this in the first and during field visits. For example, many communities wanted to strengthen their embankments around schools after the last year's flood, but funding bottlenecks left them helpless. And second, give real autonomy to the local education officers. So, see, let the local officials approve small school-based resilience actions without waiting for endlessly for the central approvals from the headquarters from Dhaka. We have to cut the red tape. We have to. The regime has changed. If you are talking about the policy advocacy, we have to advocate for the cutting the red tape. Third, that we have to integrate the plans into national frameworks like that. I'm talking about the NAP 2023 to 2015. Now it's being revitalized, but with flexibility. Locally led does not mean disconnected. It means responsive and adaptable to real world conditions. It means recognizing that what works in maybe Shoronkola or Bagaihat may not be the solution for Kurigram or Sunamganj. We have to decentralize it. I absolutely agree with what Musharraf Kansan Bhai was saying. The decentralization is the key here. So what's the bigger lesson here? From the field realities I've seen, if we trust and invest in local actors rather than, with what we're doing, adaptation is faster, smarter, and more sustainable. And if we don't, we'll keep like seeing schools closed from the months, even after the years, after every disaster, after every flood, more children dropping out, more migration, whatnot, maybe more lost futures. We can either keep pitching problems every year, or we can start building like true resilience in true sense from the ground up. You see, the wisdom is already there. The teachers are there. They are the wise flag bearers and the beacon bearers of our future. We can start the teachers, the parents, the students, all they need is trust, tools to follow for the sustainable solutions, and a little bit of power, the empowerment, local empowerment. Locally led is not optional anymore. It's the only way forward. I've told this before. And honestly, if not now, then when? Because there's no planet B, right? That's all from me now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jawad Bhai, that how you explained how locally led adaptation should be taken into account while making decisions during the projects and plannings. So now I'd like to conclude the session here with the speech from Savio Rosario Bhai from ICCCAD, who is working here as program coordinator and focal person of locally led adaptation program.
Thank you, Samia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's been a while. It's almost more than an hour that we planned the session to happen within 1 hour or so, but because of this insightful words from our experts, and indeed, when we were actually planning to have the panelist, you can see this dynamic here. So we have someone from the practitioner level, we have someone from the academia, and also a person, a youth who's based in Sunamganj and who's actually reflecting what she has witnessed over the years. So this is the beauty of Gobeshona, first of all, I would say, because this is a platform where we try to bring in all sort of research and expertise together. And particularly talking about this research, so this is something that we did from the CAPROS project that Samia has mentioned, my colleague has mentioned. And this was funded by the Swedish International Development Agency. And from the ECAD's LLA team, we were actually part of this big project, even though we had a very limited timeline to conduct the research study. But I think my team did a fabulous job in conducting this research and collecting all the data, and most importantly, talking to the key stakeholders. So what I understood from this overall discussion from our expert panels is like we have the resource at the local level, they hold the resource. But on the other hand, we have the policies that are at the central stage, right? So this interlinking is missing. And this is what we need. And this is the need of the time that we need to breach this gap. And what I understand from the overall research and also from the talk from today's session is that we do need a whole of society approach where we shouldn't be just confined waiting for some sort of support flowing down from the upper level to the bottom level, but there needs to be some sort of integration where the communities are also well adopted, and we do know that they have been doing this for years. It's nothing new to them. Maybe the terminologies are new to them, maybe local adaptation is new to them, nature-based solution is new to them. The practice was always there. Maybe it was just the jargons and the terms. So how the development sector is looking at this is providing more support, whether it's through the government, whether it's through the local government, or they're coming and then supporting these communities. Whatever it is, it needs to be a whole of a society approach where everything needs to be interlinked. Because if we work in silos, nothing is going to work. And that is what we have been seeing over the years, right? So having said that, I would like to extend my uh, gratitude to our expert panelists today. Thanks to Tansin Bhai, Zawad Bhai, and Nahin Nazdin for their time. And we hope that we can continue our collaborations together in the near future. And we hope to meet in person sometime. So thank you. And also a very big congratulations and also heartfelt thank you to my team, Ronan, for your presentation and Samia for moderating this session. Over to you, Samia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel Bhai, for making the closing remarks, and thank you to all the honorable panelist members for your insightful discussion and the suggestion you have made based on your experience and your uh, thoughts. And we could definitely use these for our future scopes and works. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ikat.
You.
Thank you. So we can end our session here. Thank you, everyone.